Well, everybody, it's just like the good old days back in the days of 2020 and early 2021, where you've got the two knuckleheads, myself, Chris Jackson, and co-owner Gregory Moreland-Tuhn, back on the West Coast Preps podcast. Been a minute, been a
Yeah.
while, been a few years probably, but we are back together on the show once again. Who knows where in the world this thing's gonna go, what twists and turns we have, but with us.
We should warn the people who didn't listen back in 2020 and 2021 that these podcasts never stay on track. It goes off the rails a few times. So expect that.
Remember the roller coaster of emotions when we found out on the podcast Clay got hurt again, but then they got Kelly Oubre, which obviously didn't work out, but
Yeah. Yeah. Feel like we used to talk more Warriors because, there was no high school sports going on
no,
in
there
the
was nothing.
parts of this podcast.
We had showcases every weekend to think of how far it's come. And now that we actually have football every weekend, every night of the week, and well, it's been a dandy of a football season too. And you've seen some real freaking studs out there, especially at the quarterback position.
I have, yeah. I texted Chris that I wanted to come on basically for my two what I called hot takes, and then he said they're not hot takes.
They are not all.
It's like hot chocolate, and then you forget about it, and it's just kind of like lukewarm. So these are lukewarm hot takes, basically. My hot take is Luke Baker has the best attributes to become an NFL player out of this 2024 class. I think that everything that he has done for that San Ramon Valley team has been absolutely incredible. I think that he has that mentality. He has that clutch gene in him that you can't teach clutchness. And I've tried to get answers out of him multiple times, saying like, "How do you come up so big in such big spots, both in baseball and football?" And he's continues to say, "I don't know. It just happens." So one day, if someone can learn how to teach that clutch gene, they'll become millionaires. But Luke Baker, I mean, just his arm, his talent, his leadership abilities, everything that he's been able to do for that San Ramon Valley team, going to a state championship last season, and what they've done this year, almost beating De La Salle, first NCS team, and what was it, 40 years, 30 years, or something like that. So, and he'll probably have another chance to beat them. And I think they have a good chance in that NCS, most likely NCS championship game. So, that is my first lukewarm take.
I know why Luke Baker is clutch. It's probably, I mean, it's pretty simple, but it's hard to do. He outworks everybody else. It's plain and simple, right? That's why he's so confident. He's so calm and cool under pressure, where even if he has an interception or his team is down, they were down 15 to De La Salle with what, a couple of minutes left. So Jack is there. They
Yeah,
come back. I mean, they get an onside kick. A lot of stuff has to go right, but it's because why did the stars align? It's because they worked hard and they embody their quarterback, Luke Baker, who's the leader. That's why things are going to go right more times than not, because you've got someone like Luke. That family's been in that program since we were in high school.
yeah,
Wait, so I remember his older brother, one of his older brothers, I should say, was the quarterback there. I believe my senior year when there was him there, Kyle Kearns there. Those are all just reminiscent at this point, but it's a family that's going to outwork you. It's a family that's going to do everything they can to succeed. And it's hard enough to be great at one sport, let alone two, like Luke has. It literally says the kid's a fierce competitor. And no matter what you do, he's gonna one up you and he's gonna two up you. And that's why he's the most clutch kid there is, and it's why the sky's the limit. It's a literal crime. It should be a crime against humanity that there isn't there aren't football offers for him. Luckily, there's baseball on the table anyway, but the fact there's no football opportunities for him is got to be the most asinine thing, I think, since we started. We've seen some asinine stuff since we started with recruiting. This has to be at the top of that list.
yeah. I mean, he's just been incredible. I mean, I remember him against I want to say it was Capital Christian, in Modesto. And when Jack Quigley got hurt, if you remember Jack Quigley, a great
Oh,
quarterback at San Ramon Valley before Luke Baker took over, but Quigley got hurt for a series, and came out, and Luke Baker came in a tight game and led them down the field and made a couple big plays before Quigley was cleared to come back into the game. And at that moment, I think I even sent Chris a text. I was like, "This kid is good." Like, and that he was a sophomore at that time. Just a young buck. I saw him in practice when I went to their practice a couple times too, and looked good, could throw the ball for sure. But when he came into that game, you could tell like, okay, this guy's going to be good. Like San Ramon Valley's in good hands. Once Quigley left, and sure enough, they've been in great hands.
Yeah, I remember seeing him at McClymonds last year. I
Yeah,
think in early October or whenever it was, and they were down 21 points. And guess what? He throws for 513 yards. The amount of running up and down the sidelines, the chain game, the refs, us, everybody had to do. I think he probably ran about 10 miles on that sideline that night in Oakland. Luke was just picking apart that really, really talented McClymonds defense left and right. Of course, McClymonds still won, but that comeback in a large part can be attributed to Baker and what that gamer mentality he has in that team. I mean, no stage is ever too big for that kid. So you could put him in any situation in college too. And any atmosphere, any situation. It almost gives me that Aiden Mahaney vibe in some ways, where Aiden Mahaney just
yeah,
thrived off the big stage, right? He liked it when people were barking at him when he was on the road in that high stakes environment. And he always won. He's done that at St. Mary's as a freshman last year too.
still doing it.
There was
Yep.
no shock when he came back and willed that crazy comeback against Gonzaga in Moraga. And it's Luke Baker's got a lot of those same traits where no stage is ever going to be too big for that young man.
Yeah, I do want to give a couple shout outs to a couple other 24 kids that, at the moment you can only project so far, but at the moment they definitely look like they have a chance. And I'm sure there's even more that I'm going to miss here as well. But Jericho Johnson, Jabari Mann, and Joseph Bay, those are another three kids that are in this 24 class that are going to high level Division I college football programs, and also have great chances of making the NFL. And obviously, this is projecting, 5 years down the road. Um, so who really knows what's going to happen? But just they're dominating the high school class right now.
Who were those seniors you've seen this year and even the last few years that are now seniors that you're watching and just thinking like, hey, how are they flying under the radar like this?
Well, I mean, the number one guy is definitely Luke Baker. I I know it sounds crazy, but I feel like Joseph Bay. I fell in love with him freshman year as a football player. He's not necessarily flying under the radar per se, um, but he's been my favorite player on that Sarah team since we started. We've seen him all 4 years now. So yeah, that's definitely one of the players that I love. The Wilcox, they call him Moose. He's been great as well. That offensive lineman, what was he, 6'7", like 300 pounds or something like that.
Oh, he's huge.
Yeah, I've seen him a few times. I haven't seen him play this year, but I've heard that he's been dominating still, which is no surprise to me.
And we've both seen a couple of these kids too. CJ Lee at Jesuit, the senior quarterback, he's got one D3 offer, but you watch him, even from the first time I saw him to last week, the mechanics are just, it's pretty incredible to see mechanics even improve that much in a season, right? I mean, he's got the arm strength, he's got the accuracy. He's at 20 miles an hour in a game as a quarterback too, which is ridiculous at this level. But I remember early on, I mean, he would have to dip a little bit and kind of dip those hips a little bit and throw that deep ball. Of course, it was so accurate on the money. Now it's just everything's so compact and so smooth. And the kid wins. He's a leader. He's making checks at the line of scrimmage. The fact that he doesn't have anything more is ridiculous. The same with Caleb Dixon there. So I know you've written a report on him. You've spoken to him. I've spoken to him. He's 6'1". He just hit 20.78 miles an hour on Saturday, I want to say, but he's 6'1", makes every crazy catch in the end zone. It's crazy what he does. There's the quarterback and running back at Vista Del Lago, John Kett and Xavier Bryan. They both have some offers, but the fact they're not getting more, the way they win, how strong Bryan is as a running back, you can't teach a running back that's probably squatting 450 to 500 pounds with that body. And John Kett just 24 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, a couple of D1 offers. He should have more than we go to Del Oro. Bo Save, 6'4", 6'5", receiver / safety, has really nothing, but he's so rangy and so quick and great hands to be 6'4" and 6'5", not have much is another one of those situations where you just wonder what the heck in the world is going on. And the same goes for the St. Mary Stockton running back, Asante Carter. Every game, just pencil him in for 2 to 3 touchdowns. I mean, he's strong, he's quick, elusive, great vision. hell of a young man too. He's got perfect grades. I think the rest of us are more worried about his recruiting than him. He's always saying it'll work out for me. I'm not focused on that right now. I'm going to win, which is a good mentality to have. But at a certain point, people need to open their eyes and to see that too. And then a couple of the kids at 12 Bridges. Whit Cruz, we remember when he was a little sophomore right at the camp, throwing in, slicing and dicing people away. And what he's done now at 12 Bridges, he's a senior. They're 9-0 in their second year varsity program. They just won at Sutter 2 weeks ago on a Thursday night, who had not lost a league game in years. And then his running back, Nathan Crawford, 28 touchdowns in 9 games. And most of them were decided by halftime. So we didn't have to get a lot of carries. Those 2 kids right there as well, but right there near the top of the list. The fact that those are some of those kids you watch and you look over and you just ask, like, how?
Yeah, I mean, the recruiting game, we've had countless conversations on how we can try and help, and we hope that the website and the articles and our stuff that we've done with Catapult and the sleeper reports that we've done on the website, we've hoped that's helped a little bit. But it's a tough game. There's no rhyme or reason sometimes as to why these kids get recruited and don't get recruited. So I mean, the message has always been put in the work, send out those emails. We always talk about Austin Flax, the first guy we ever wrote a story on. He was sending out 40, 50 emails a day, DMing coaches, his film, and just trying to do everything he can, and eventually got that commitment to Drake. So, like I said, there's no rhyme or reason. Another kid that I want to point out is Quinn Boyd. I was talking to your dad, who was at the game taking pictures with me the other day. He reminds me of Aaron Rodgers. He has that little jump throw to him that Rodgers does. Not that he's on Rodgers level or anything like that. Obviously, Aaron Rodgers is a Hall of Famer. Don't want to put that sort of pressure on him, but just the kind of reminder. Good size, great arm, can move, really commands that offense really well. Those couple times I've seen him, but just not as many offers as you think someone of that size and skill level has gotten.
CJ and Quinn Boyd's mechanics in a lot of ways remind me of each other, just because I remember Quinn last year had the arm and he still kind of dipped a little bit. Now that thing is, I mean, that thing's as perfect as a motion could ever be. And that ball is on the money. He's a gamer. He wins in a lot of situations. One of those kids, he's got a PWO to Western Michigan right now. You just hope things go his way. Maybe as opportunities open up, you see kids transfer out, especially in the next few months. Maybe more of those chances do come his way, because right now, unfortunately, a lot of 2024 spots are closing at schools until about December during bowl season, when more players put their name in the portal. But you also just saw Quinn Boyd face a former Granada quarterback in the 2025 class that it really seems like he's not flying under the radar anymore. And his head coach told Dylan before the year, might be the best quarterback we've ever had.
Yeah, and the head coach said similar things, that once he got there in March and transferred in from Granada, that the team gravitated to him. The way he just was infectious in that locker room. The moment he stepped onto that campus, it's Tristan Tia from Amador Valley, the 2025 quarterback. I finally got to see him. He was been at our camp. I've seen him before, but finally getting to see him in an 11-on-11 game. God, he was impressive. I mean, just incredible. I mean, everything looks great when you win 48-0 in a league title game, of course. But Tristan Tia had a major reason in that win. And my second lukewarm take is that I think he's the best quarterback in the 2025 class at this moment, at least in the Bay Area. And so, just the way he can run, the way he can move, he's a legit dual threat quarterback. But he can also throw the ball. I mean, he can sling that ball. He made some incredible throws over the game against Amador or against Granada, and I was just thoroughly impressed. And yeah, I think I'm the leader of the bandwagon now, on the Tristan Tia bandwagon.
And UNLV literally just gave him an offer
in
the last 48 hours. What UNLV's done, and they're a 6-1 program now as well. That's going crazy. They've actually got couple of 2024 commitments right in my backyard out here in Mason Vicari, who I saw yesterday at Christian Brothers, and Devin Green, who I saw on Friday at Grant. So you don't know if he's crushing it, and they're the first ones on the ball for Tristan Tia, and that's certainly not going to be the last one to go. his way in that class because he's got every trait. And he comes from an amazing family too. His older sister is a D1 volleyball player at San Jose State. She was ridiculous at Granada for volleyball, and she
Yeah.
is doing the same at San Jose State as well. So Tristan Tiet.
Tia's cousins also transferred
Yep.
to Amador and has been big time. I think he's playing center, if I'm not mistaken, and he's been great. Coach Jones also said that both of them came in and really changed the culture of that program. So, like you said, just an incredible family. Um, and yeah, I can't be more impressed by Tia.
And who are the biggest surprise teams this fall?
Um, I mean, the biggest ones have to be Menlo and Hillsdale. Both of them have just kind of came out of nowhere. I don't think anyone foresaw a 7-0 team and Hillsdale being well, they're 7-1 now, I think, and their only losses to Menlo. I don't think anyone could have predicted that. So those have to be the two best surprises out of NorCal. Definitely two smaller schools. They're not known as powerhouses. Menlo has had some really good seasons over the last 4 years, but they lost a ton of a ton of players to college over the last year, and they just retooled. It wasn't a rebuild. It wasn't anything like that. They just retooled and got back to their winning ways, and they definitely look like they have a chance to go undefeated. They have a couple good games left. They have SHP still left on that schedule as well. So Menlo's the big surprise. Christopher, I don't think it's necessarily a huge surprise. I think they came into the season knowing they had a lot of talent, but still an undefeated team that flies on the radar just because they're in Gilroy, and it's kind of out of the main areas you think of when you think of powerhouses. But Christopher has had some great seasons over the last couple of years, and they continue that success. Another one is Granada. I don't think I expected them to be as good as they have been. I know they had a tough loss against Amador over last week, but they've definitely impressed me with the way they've kind of turned that program around from where it was during the COVID season, and where they kind of left off that during that year. They've definitely turned that program around. So
Yeah, it feels like it's Granada's most talented team since Casey Soltis was there.
yeah,
He was an even better baseball player, and since the days of the late Atkinson twins on campus too, and they were just incredible before they went to Notre Dame. There's a lot of talent in Quinn Boyd's definitely at the center of that, but there's a lot more coming up at their sub varsity levels. Their sub varsity levels have barely lost any games in about 3 to 4 years. And Amador Valley is a great one too. I don't think anyone's shocked that they're doing well, but just the way they've played has been beat Monte Vista 41-34. They've beat Camp Linda, who's always a well-coached program under Macy. It doesn't matter who they have, who they lose. Macy's always going to have them ready. And then to beat Granada on the road, what was it? 48
nothing.
48. Yeah, that making some of us look silly with some of those predictions for that game. So good for them, but Amador Valley definitely has that monster going. They've got Jake Goldsworthy at running back, who was just freaking tough as nails. That pound the rock mentality is him to a T. And then you've got Tia throwing to Jetter, Cervantes, all these other guys. Amador's going to make some noise this year in the postseason.
Yeah, they definitely are. I mean, it was an impressive win. The defense. I mean, I think that's what the main thing is. Coach Jones talked about the defensive coordinator. The defensive coordinator's father used to coach at SRV, and just a great defensive mind. He said he keeps everything super simple. These kids can understand it easily, and they've just been dominant. They've only given up more than 2 touchdowns once, and I think that was in that win against Monte Vista. When they lost to El Cerrito, I think it was 14-6, and they gave up 13 in another game. So they haven't given up more than 14 twice or once in this season, and it's just been incredible what they've been able to do. So it's something fun to watch for sure, and it's fun to see that program, that has some great history, kind of be back on top of their game.
Another team that's really simplified things and it's working out, right? You simplify those systems and you get kids to hone in, execute. Look what happens. It's Intercom. They simplified their offensive scheme in the offseason. They're 8-1. They've won 8 straight, and that one loss was to Del Oro, and that's when their head coach was suspended for a week. And since Reggie Harris has come back, it's been 8 straight wins, 6 of 50 plus points. They had an 80 plus point game not too long ago. They had 2 straight weeks when I had seen them where they had 60 against Capital Christian, 68 against Sacramento. And that thing's humming along. I remember you saw them at their scrimmage at Rockland and you were texting me like, oh my God, these kids are freaking good. They're gonna make some noise. Ricky Cole's just a do-it-all quarterback. He can run, he can throw, he's got the weapons on the outside. Christian Harris, Lono Shoto is just a touchdown machine. The running game, Kyle Greganius, and obviously a quarterback that can run, and Cole, and then Bam Taylor being healthy is awesome, dude. They've got the line play, the secondary. Barron Taylor has got 5 or 6 interceptions. He's a ball hawk machine. Danny Kirkpatrick is making tackles left and right. He's in the backfield, and Josiah Sharma's a D1D lineman as well. But Intercom's been one of those teams that you look at that D1 bracket, they are a top 4 or 5 seed easily in the Sac Joaquin section. That's probably a team, the way they're playing right now, that you really do not want to have to face and game plan for.
Yeah, no, I remember seeing them in the preseason, and it was a jamboree scrimmage type thing, very kind of structured for the coaches to really coach up their teams and not a normal um, scrimmage type game. So I didn't want to put too much into it, but they were dominating, and some good teams were at that as well. You had Vacaville and Rockland and Placer, so there was good teams that they were playing against, and I was like, I even posted on Twitter. I was like, this is a little statement. I know it's only a scrimmage, but this is kind of a statement. Like, okay, Endercombe they're going to be good this year, um, and so sure enough, that translated into the regular season, and they've been dominant.
Yeah, there was no denying that talent they had going into the season. That area in Natomas, they've got so many kids coming out, D1 kids, great coaching. It's just a matter of how much do they live up to it, and they've more than lived up to any kind of billing anyone put on them, even maybe the billing they put on themselves, right? And they are still nowhere done, which now leads into what are the biggest things you're looking for. It's 2 weeks left in the regular season in the Bay Area sections, 1 week left. This is the last weekend of regular season football in the Sac Joaquin section. What are some of the biggest things, biggest key storylines, whatever it is that you're kind of looking towards as the regular season is somehow crazily coming to a close here pretty quickly?
Yeah, crazy that we're already heading towards the final weeks of the season. NCS D1 Open Division. I mean that is, I think, the best race. Part of the premier teams. You have De La Salle, Pittsburgh, and San Ramon Valley. And you never know, there might be a sleeper team in there, but that's definitely the top 3 horses right now to try and get there and win. Um, it's people have called me De La Salle haters. I do love the program and what they've done early in the year. Everyone knows I picked Pittsburgh to beat them on multiple different occasions. But there is a chink in the armor. I think teams don't feel the same way of like, okay, this is a guaranteed loss. I think people know that, okay, we might have a chance. We have to play perfect. You still have to play perfect football to beat a team like that. But I think that there's a chance, and I think everyone else feels that way too. I think Pittsburgh and San Ramon Valley have a chance, but again, they have to play perfect football to get there. So I'm assuming we'll see a Pitt SRV matchup in the postseason. I think that will most likely happen. I think that will be an incredible game. If we do happen to get that matchup, if the seedings all fall out correctly, and they'll get to play De La Salle and most likely. So yeah, that's the biggest storyline. The lower divisions in CCS, those are always exciting. The way they do their seedings, it's usually pretty evenly matched up. You'll have Menlo most likely in Division 2, and you also have Christopher there. A couple teams I mentioned as the sleepers or people that have really come up big this year. And then Sarah, just the unlikely slip up that they might have. You never know, and when it comes to playoffs, but I can't imagine anyone beating them, and they'll likely be going to play. Will it be Modern Day this year? Is that the SoCal team, or is it Bosco?
Bosco crushed them, but those two teams
Okay.
are going to see each other again. I mean,
Yeah.
it was, what was the graphic Max Prep showed a couple of weeks ago? It was 76 or something combined D1 players in that one high school game. It is just ridiculous how
Yeah.
that's
It's
human.
really not an unfair advantage, but it's an experience for those Sarah kids. I know Tom Brady, he bought him a flight, right, to go down there or something
Helped
like
them
that.
all get that trip down there. That's
Yeah.
as cool as it gets.
So I don't think it might not be the easiest game of their lives, but I think it's an experience that they'll obviously never forget in this group of seniors for that Sarah class. Covering that final game, whether it's me, you, Jack, or Dylan, that's a special moment because that's one of the best classes that I think we'll ever see.
And there's not many better people in athletics than Patrick Walsh and his assistants either. So to see what they've done to get to this point, whether they win or not, to even get the open bid is the ultimate sign of respect at any single division section, whether you're open in basketball, baseball, for NorCal's, whatever it is the ultimate sign of respect. So Sarah, this is probably the closest they've been in these last few years. They've made that state run to the open division a couple of times. This is, you'd have to think, the closest that they'll be to a modern day Bosco situation. And who knows, maybe the ball bounces their way. If they force a couple of turnovers and they don't turn the ball over, the analytics will show that they're
Never know.
good chance that you're going to win. And now, biggest things we got the last weekend in the Sac Joaquin section. I can't believe it's here. I remember going to Orangevale on August 18th and watching Casa Roble against Placer. It's crazy to think that it's the last week of October, but it's that D5 race. Who's going to get the top seed? Either way, it probably doesn't matter a whole lot. It's just the only thing that changes is matchups, who you're going to face, and who wears the home jerseys in the section championship really is what it is. But Casa Roble and Schwab Bridges are the clear-cut top two teams. Casa Roble's 8-1, but their one loss to Del Oro, a game where they were in it for much of it. Just a couple of late plays. Del Oro got to stand at the goal line, a lot of different things. But they've beaten Placer, who's ranked. They've beaten West Park, who's ranked. And then 12 Bridges, 9-0, a big win at Sutter. They are pretty much crushing the competition. So that's probably a collision course. Of course, you don't want to just pencil in some things in postseason brackets in November football, but that's a collision course that is looking pretty dang good. And then the other one is got to be just Intercom Monterey Trail. How those teams shake out going into the postseason. Monterey Trail's won 6 straight. They are a team. You had mentioned it too with Turlock. We've both seen them, but Turlock, the way they've scheduled in non-league, right, was Turlock had played some ridiculous opponents. They played Rockland, Clovis West, Central Fresno, Folsom, and Clayton Valley. 0-5, but what have they done now? They're league champs again. And then Monterey Trail played Folsom. They played St. Francis. They played Pittsburgh. Those St. Francis and Pittsburgh games, both one-score losses. Since then, Monterey Trail has won 6 straight. They just beat Grant. That Veer offense is an ageless wonder if it's executed right. And Fontrell away for 201 yards in that game. They've got the athletes, Eric Phillips on the outside. They're going to gash you up and down the middle, hitting you on the outside, whatever it is with the Veer. Then they're going to have Eric Phillips on the outside, or Damian McAllister just making some big catches. And it's interested to see how Monterey Trail does within our respect, like them and Turlock. And Monterey Trail players said it after the game. We're not scared of anyone. That's our program. We're not scared of anyone, anything. And teams got to be rewarded for that and for not being afraid of a darn thing on that football field, right? It's paying off for Turlock and Monterey Trail. And those are two teams that are going to host some early round playoff games. So I'm interested to see how they really do in the D1 playoffs this year.
Yeah, I feel like the Sac Joaquin section has some tighter races than NCS and CCS this year. Not necessarily a deep amount of teams, but the 1 and 2 seeds in each division. I mean, it really is a coin flip compared to some of these NCS and CCS races. You're like, okay, we kind of know that 1 seed is the dominant force in this division. Where Sac Joaquin section, I mean, it really feels like it can go any direction, like you were saying. So many good teams. Monterey Trail beat Grant. I've seen Grant. You've seen Grant, obviously. I mean, that team is incredible. The running backs that they have, and I know they just added a new one who finally was just allowed to play just last week, I believe. So Monterey Trails, I mean, it's an exciting team. Yeah, it's going to be fun. And it's going to be fun to have NorCal's just kind of see how these, Sac Joaquin versus NCS or CCS teams stack up. I think this has been going to be the best NorCal's that we've had in quite some time.
I'm super excited. I like the way the Sac Joaquin section races play out in a lot of divisions because it's so balanced across the board, right? You've got some of your clear-cut favorites in each division, but it's teams that can easily make runs at state. Like D1, you've got Folsom, you've got Oak Ridge. Folsom's probably the favorite, right? You'd have to think so. But Central Catholic's playing great football too, and they've got transfers eligible. That 4-star Manasseh Tete, who's a Florida State commit on the offensive line's eligible. They've got a Clemson commit at quarterback and athletes on the outside, good running backs. Monterey, Charlie Nurcombe. D2 is loaded too. You've got St. Mary's of Stockton, you've got Del Oro, Manteca, Jesuit, Rockland. I mean, there's so many great teams. And you look at D3, Grant, probably the runaway favorite right now, but who knows? Fannon's won back-to-back section titles. Wood Creek's a good team as well. So who knows what can happen on any given Friday or Saturday night. And then D4 is Vista Del Lago, who's having a season for the ages. All the athletes that we mentioned earlier, Escalon's state championship program for the last probably 80, 90 years of its existence, or however long the school's been open. But that's a program that's right up there too. Same with Patterson. Rio Americano can make some noise. They're going to bounce back really well. They're 8-1. And then D5 at Castle Roble, 12 Bridges. So I don't know if I've been more excited for playoff races than I actually have been this year.
Yeah, it's one of those things, like, they say it in college, you can't trust a bunch of young kids. Well, now take a couple of years off and you're trying to trust a bunch of 16, 17-year-olds to come out and play the same way they played all season long and not have pressure get to them. It's just, it's not attainable. There's obviously a gap in some of these teams in terms of talent, but you just can't count on a 17-year-old. And that's because, pressure gets to kids. They haven't experienced stuff, everything like that. They're not professional athletes. They're not playing in the NFL right now. They're not trained. They're not being prepped. That's why you see cramps so many times. Their diet's probably not as good as it should be. There's probably a little too much Taco Bell in that diet than what it should be. So you can't trust 17-year-old kids, and that's why it's any given Friday.
Yeah.
Friday Night Lights. It's incredible. That's what makes high school sports so much fun at the same time as exhilarating, and obviously there's heartbreak. One of the teams go home heartbroken.
Yeah, it makes me think back at that Los Gatos Bellarmine playoff game you were at in the fall of 2021, I want to say, and just the ending to that game and the way Bellarmine advanced on in those playoffs. Pretty much the epitome of everything you just said.
Yeah. There's been some great playoff games. And I think this year is going to be no different. I think it's going to be the same thing, for sure.
Yeah, well, everybody, that's all we've got. The two OGs are back on the podcast, and we're gonna have to
actually stayed on the reels though. Hold on, we got nothing else. We don't want to go off track here or anything.
I got nothing else, man. I got
Bob Melvin, Menlo Atherton Pride.
I mean, that's cool. I mean, that's pretty damn cool. He's back in the Bay Area again, right? He did some good things with the A's. Now he's back with the Giants. Hopefully, the Giants spend a little bit more this time. And they don't try to look over to their counterparts across the bay and think that's going to work. But if they can spend just a little bit, Melvin's going to win you a lot of ball games.
Yeah, this podcast just feels weird. We didn't go off the rails. We actually stayed on topic. We flowed through. This is weird.
You know what it is? It's because we're getting older and more mature.
Maybe we're just becoming good at this whole media thing.
It's the way work ethic pays off is all I'm going to say. That's what it is, right?
Cool. I'll see you guys in 2 years when I do my next podcast. Maybe we'll bring back the GMT show one day.
Oh God,
unlikely, but you never know.
We'll see. But everybody follow along. Maybe we'll have to do this again, Greg and I, more often. I think it was always fun, so we'll have to do this a lot more often. Definitely in the playoffs too. There's going to be some craziness going, but hit the like button, subscribe, and do the same thing at westcoastpreps.com. Get your subscription, some of the cheapest prices, and you'll get the best content from Greg, myself, Jack, Dylan, and all of our amazing interns going into the postseason and then winter sports starting. So check that all out and sign up today at westcoastpreps.com.